Good morning, doctor. Welcome back.
Good morning, Venku. How are you today?
I'm good. I'm good. So, as usual, I'll introduce the topic and then hand over to you.
Yes.
So, our topic for today is Vanaprasthashram, which is one of the 4 ashrams or stages of life in Hinduism. And the reason why it's part of our series on balance, and in fact, the title is that it's not just for seniors, is because in a way, this is something that we need to prepare for all our lives. The other part is that some of the things we need to prepare for that phase, which is essentially a phase of detachment, is something that is applicable across our lives, right? And so a lot of that actually helps us in our previous ashrams as well to lead a more balanced and healthy life. And that's why it's part of our series on balance is the essence. Yeah.
Right.
Over to you, doctor.
Okay. Thank you, Venkatesh. Good to see a tongue-twisting title for a seminar. Vanaprasthashram is something that not many people can even pronounce. It's like practice. And Vanaprasthashram is a tricky, dicey phase of life. The other 3 phases of life, for example, when you are a child, you call it brahmacharya, you are a bal, you are playing, you're like a child playing. It's not difficult to fathom. And next is Grihasthashrama. You get married and lead a full-fledged life of family and so forth. That is also not difficult to understand.
Right.
And at the other end, you have got sannyas ashram, where you leave everything and go.
Right.
It's very easy to discard. It's like going to a laundromat and dropping off your clothes like that. And that's also not difficult to fathom.
Right.
The real difficult thing to fathom is Vanaprasthashram. You'll wonder what this word means.
Right.
Vana is forest,
Right.
and prasthan is to depart.
Right.
So when you leave home, you are leaving for what? That's what you have to define. What are you going to leave for?
Correct.
So prasthan is
Leave
departure.
for, to depart from. Yeah.
As Venku said, it's not just for seniors because you cannot just turn on and turn off a switch to get into Vanaprasthashram and get out of it.
Correct.
It's a very slow, gradual process, and many people refuse to recognize Vanaprasthashram.
Right.
For example, I've got a bunch of executive friends who stubbornly refuse to even consider the word Vanaprasthashram. They say it's all humbug.
Right.
That's okay. But if it continues to be a humbug, you may find it difficult to adjust in a later life.
Right.
But to adjust, you require time, and for
Right.
require time, you require more days and more nights to go by. So that's the tricky part. How
Correct.
to disengage. So Vanaprasthashram, as Yanku said, is not just for seniors.
Right.
The next slide, please.
Yeah.
So ultimately, Vanaprasthashram is to prepare oneself for a life in the jungles, a life where you have to fend your way through and without hurting others and so forth. So Vanaprastha ashram requires preparation.
Right.
The ashram may not require preparation that much. You get married, you live happily ever after, you say. But childhood is not difficult to prepare comparatively.
Right.
Old age also is similar, but Vanaprastha requires a hell of a lot of preparation.
Correct.
And that's the art and science of preparing for Vanaprasthashram, which is a phase of disengagement,
Correct.
disequilibrium also. So
Right.
that is a trick. Yeah. Venku, you have comments?
No, I think very, very well put according to me that this is actually the toughest one, right? Because in the others, the roles are sort of defined. This is one of transition and of detachment. And it need not be about a physical forest. It's a metaphorical forest. You're basically detaching from everything that you invested your time and resources into, which is your family or your grasta. And that's not an easy one to do. So absolutely. Absolutely.
Right.
Should I move to the next one?
Yeah. Move on.
Yeah.
Unlike other ashramas, Vanaprasthashram will not have an ashram of its own. There will be no building, there will be no cottage, there will be no deers in the lawn and so forth. So it is not possible to have an ashram. In that case, what is the point in having a Vanaprasthashram? So people will ask, Is it possible in modern times to have a Vanaprasthashram with
Right.
all your, worldly affairs getting entangled and disentangled and so forth? You go through, wade through the muddy waters of Vanaprastha, and you don't know where you're going. You are going or coming, you don't know. You are going north or south, we don't know. But
Right.
still, we go through that. And this Vanaprasthashram is more or less thrust upon you,
Correct.
forced to thrust upon you, because there is no choice. As you get older, you get more and more into Vanaprastha till you reach sannyas ashram and so forth.
Correct.
According to me, is it possible to have a Vanaprastha in modern life? Yes.
Yes.
Now, how
Right.
to do that? We will see. We will see. Yeah.
Absolutely.
Next slide. Now, here is a diagrammatic representation of the four ashramas.
Correct.
Varnashram they call it. But Varnashram has a different connotation also.
Right.
But we'll say ashram vyavastha,
Right.
like when you go to office, we work out what is your time with the sales department, with the marketing department, and personnel department, and so forth. You have sort of a mental frame in front of you,
Correct.
and Vanaprastha will have a similar one, and all other ashrams will have a similar one. Now here you will see the first one, just to have fun and frolic and have fun, is brahmacharya. You'll be wondering why, what is Brahma about, about all that stuff. Well, the idea is to emphasize the importance of learning.
Correct.
Brahmacharya stands for the importance of learning, and that learning starts right from Aksharabhyas when you are hardly 2 or 2.5 years old.
Right.
Mind you, Brahmacharya ashram doesn't start it just like that. It is a question of learning and starting to learn right at the age of even 1 or 2.
Right.
That's when your Guruji will come and tell you how to write A on rice,
Right.
and you're supposed to do namaskaram to that letter. See,
Right.
God is letter,
Right.
and that is brahmacharya.
Right.
And after that, and brahmacharya means you are not supposed to get distracted as you are learning. This is the
Correct.
tough. Almost all the learners today are distracted continuously
Correct.
in the tubes and whatever. And that is the reason why brahmacharya is defined as a disciplined building ashram.
Right.
And this has to be remembered and has to be administered also by the parents. The parents have to make sure that brahmacharya ashram doesn't mean just running up and down and playing marbles or
Right.
playing golf or something. So it is not just that, it's your frame of mind. In other words, you are sort of starting out on even Vanaprasthashram and sannyas ashram right at the level of brahmacharya ashram. And if you don't have a solid brahmacharya ashram, you are bound to have trouble very soon, very, very soon. You
Right.
run into problems, especially in Grihasthashram,
Correct.
where you are supposed to play the role of the leader of the family.
Right.
And if you are not prepared, like, if you go to NDA and see how the army trains the cadets and
Correct.
so forth, you will see how rigorous the training has to be at the very early stage,
Correct.
at early stage.
Correct.
And that's where the Aksharabhyas will start and so forth. And after that, Grihastha is a highly responsible phase where you get married and you settle down, you raise kids, you ensure that your progeny is in place,
Correct.
and then you are getting ready to move on to the next ashram that we will
That's the
see
topic
shortly.
of today. Correct.
Yeah. So in Grihasthashram, you're supposed to spend time with your wife, with your spouse, and you're supposed to enlighten and get enlightened about all the aspects of life, right from commerce and agriculture and whatever.
Correct.
You choose your field and then you focus on it and develop it, and so
Correct.
that when you are ready with your skills, Grihasthashram is actually skill building.
Right.
You have to build the skill of a husband who will have to take care of the family, whether he does carpentry or masonry or whether he does something else. All that is built in Grihastha. If you don't build your skills in Grihasthashram, your Grihasthashram will fail and the rest of the ashrams will fail. So this is a highly responsible building phase of life. And once that phase is through, you sort of you are getting ready to, you are getting prepared or you're preparing yourself for the next stage of life when you know that your body is not going to be the same way as it was 5 years ago and 10 years ago.
Correct.
And therefore, your mind is also not going to be the same. How to
Correct.
manage that? That's the
Correct.
trickiest part of Vanaprasthashram.
Correct.
Vanaprasthashram is a detachment or a disengagement, if you like.
Correct.
And once that is completed, then you think of sannyas ashram. You know, like Stephen Covey's hierarchy of needs, your elders have told you that don't try to become a vanaprasthi, then you're still not completed as grihasthashram.
Correct.
So many of the so-called saints used to tell the followers, finish your responsibilities towards the family,
Correct.
and then only then you think of vanaprastha and so forth. You'll see that shortly. Any comment, Vinko?
No, I think this is a very foundational slide because Vanaprasthashram sits within this framework. And
Right.
some of the difficulties or the challenges of it are, you can put it in context when you see this framework. Two observations. One, I think the fact that Hinduism and our philosophy has laid this out so clearly that no phase is infinite. It is a preparatory phase, it has its role, and then it has to end. And the next one has to happen. This is a very wise way of putting things so that you know a phase will end and the next one will start. You have specific duties in one phase and you have to do those, and then you will have to prepare for and play the role in the next. I think that itself is a lot of wisdom, right?
Yeah.
Second is that, and as we will, I guess, later on discuss, across all of these, one important point you mentioned, whether it is Brahmacharya Ashram or Grihasthashram and then Vanaprasthashram, as you lead up to this, at every stage, in some ways, you are doing duties, right? Your duty is to
Right.
learn, then your duty is to take care of, and then your duty is to detach. And so that,
Right.
I think, goes back to Karma Yoga at a level which we will, I guess, finally discuss. That while you do
Right.
want to remain detached and be an instrument, is sort of almost enjoined by this way of looking at life.
Right. Right. Very true. Good. Now, here is another slightly varied version of the four ashramas.
Right.
Here, the English part, I will see that there is a householder, there's a
Right.
householder which is the, and you don't directly plunge into vanaprastha. You, just after, like our post-retirement, you retire at, say, 58 used to. Nowadays, you have to retire at even 45. So, after retirement, before you really detach, there is a phase of grihastha, which is householder. Now in the
Right.
householder phase, it doesn't appear in the four corner division. In the householder phase, you have to do the job of brooming the floor and going to the shop and buying stuff like that and going and meeting people and so forth. And you are not really in Vanaprasthashram, and nor are
Right.
you in Grihasthashram. So
Right.
this intermediate phase is there, and today is becoming a trickier role to play.
Correct.
We'll see that maybe when we have a special full session on senior citizenship.
Right.
We can look into the nuances of this.
Correct.
So this is something that is discernible.
Right.
Yeah. Next slide, please. Next slide, please. Or you want to show something? Yeah.
No, please go ahead.
Okay. So at every stage, the important thing is emotional detachment.
Right.
What is great about emotional detachment in childhood? There is no emotional detachment in childhood, you will argue. Quite to the contrary, Dr. Watson, as Sherlock Holmes put it, there is emotional detachment right at the stage of kindergarten.
Right.
When the child leaves a home or leaves the parental cushy, cuddly kind of a life, you want to go to the school,
Right.
preparatory school, they have to detach. The
Correct.
child cries. The child doesn't want to go to the school,
Correct.
and after that, doesn't want to see the mother around. He want to have the independence. But emotional detachment is a continuing thread,
Correct.
which has to be mastered. That
Correct.
we'll see that the mastery will change from phase to phase, but essentially the fundamental philosophy is of detachment.
Correct.
Next slide, please. Anything else?
No, please go ahead. Yeah.
Now, here is the eternal truth of Gautam Buddha.
Right.
And this was taught to us in the primary school.
Right.
In primary school, Gautam Buddha was portrayed as a philosopher who discovered the suffering in attachment. Mind you, discovered. He kept going around all over the country, all over the world, and he was wondering why there is still suffering.
Correct.
If detach suffering, you'll get a Nobel Prize if there existed one.
Right.
And he was the first one to mention it, apart from Vedic, Upanishadic, scholastic hypotheses. But
Right.
Gautam Buddha, just immediately after marriage, when he walked out of his home,
Right.
he wandered all over, and then he finally realized that the root of all suffering
Is
is
attachment.
attachment. So you
Correct.
say, learn to detach.
Correct.
You have to be irresponsible. You say, what nonsense, you have got family to support, you have got your this, that. So detachment is taken as an irresponsible act, whereas quite contrarily, it is a force that reinforces your existing ashrama.
Correct.
And if you are a fairly good detached sportsman, you can win more medals than a highly attached and muddied up personality, or somebody in between.
Correct.
So detachment is the continuing and constant thread,
Correct.
which is perceivable or perceptible in all these ashramas.
Correct.
And Gautam Buddha brought it out in a very succinct and very effective, emphatic manner. And what does that mean? Next slide, please. That brings us to the concept which we have been propounding or championing,
Right.
detach.
Correct.
And if you detach, what do? You go somewhere.
Right.
You have to go somewhere.
Right.
You can't be sitting in the dining hall and then eating the jalebis and then say detached. It
Right.
doesn't work. So you have to go. You have
Right.
to move. And how do you move? You prasthana. The word prasthana is that you are moving.
Correct.
And Grihasthashram, Vanaprasthashram.
Right.
Vana is the adjective of Vana.
Right.
Vana, and this is where you depart. There is an actual physical departure.
Correct.
And this is the toughest part of it. Like the bird which sees the egg, coming out into a small little birdie. So you you go through that phase of detachment and the pangs of detachment and so forth.
Correct. Correct.
And that you go through that. Prasthana is the noun.
Correct.
Yeah, next slide. Then what do you do?
Right.
In classroom, you sort of performed your duties as a householder, and then you are leaving, you are going.
Right.
And how to go? Very simple but very difficult act is of giving.
Correct.
The moment you start giving, as a Grihasthashrami, you are pardoned for not giving because you say, I'm holding this for the family.
Accumulating for my family. Correct.
Yeah. So that excuse is not going to be there. So
Right.
what do? You detach and then do what?
Correct.
You start giving. This
Right.
is the tricky part of it. The art of giving is the quintessence of Vanaprasthashram.
Right.
How do you give?
Correct.
We have to say, I don't know how to give, what to give, when to give, where to give. But
Right.
start giving. This is what Mother Teresa said. She came all the way from Czechoslovakia or Yugoslavia or somewhere.
Right.
And then she saw people dying by the roadside and nobody caring about the dying and the dead. And he was the one, this lady or girl for that matter, was the first one to say, okay, I'll do something. People said, what will you do? You're struggling to live yourself.
Right.
And she said, I'll give myself. And
Correct.
people said, what nonsense? How can you give yourself? And she said, no, I'll show it to you. I'll give myself. And she started giving, and she started giving herself.
Correct.
And that is where the art of giving came about.
Correct.
And with absolutely no asset, with absolutely no nothing on earth, this lady or this girl started giving.
Correct.
And people were wonderstruck. People were, to begin with, they were calling her mad. They said she has gone insane. White lady, living in the comforts of Europe.
Right.
Now he wants you to come to Calcutta and start giving whatever she wants to give. She's mad. She's
Right.
a mental hospital. But quite
Right.
to the contrary, art of giving became the foundation of Mother Teresa.
Right.
And the others followed. Others were there side by side.
Correct.
So next slide, please. And so we can coin a word or coin a phrase called "giving is living,"
Right.
which many charitable trusts today,
Right.
whether it is money down to simple things like work hard or something, in between, there is an evolving, recurring theme of giving.
Correct.
Giving in various forms, in various formats, various contexts, but give,
Correct.
give, and give.
Correct.
And that is the thing that starts. And that makes life easier for people who want to do something.
Right.
You can't get anything because you won't get satisfaction by getting anything. But
Correct.
you start giving, and then 101 different doors open for you.
Correct.
So giving is living is the what catchphrase, if you like, which is going to make your Vanaprastha ashram very meaningful. Any comments, Ankur?
So I think it's a good time to pause for a second on why people find this challenging, right? And actually, these last three slides in different
Right,
ways, which just to connect the dots, I guess you were saying we need to go, right? We need to detach. And that
right,
detachment is actually a gradual process. Vanaprasthashram is only the culmination of that detachment, right? Even in our early
right,
stages of Grihasthashram, we are having to start to let go of our children. Then slowly, by the time they are adults, you leave them. They don't need you. You're sort of more, you need them if you don't detach. And then you have to
right,
get on with a different phase of life where those roles are not useful. Many people could see this, especially today with improving health.
right,
What do I do with myself, right? I'm still healthy physically in early seniorhood. Or if you look at the earlier definition of Vanaprasthashram, it starts in my age, right? I am 53. And
right,
at 53, already you're in Vanaprasthashram. So what do you do? And there is another
right,
role. It's not a vacuum. In a manner, you feel comfortable doing Nishkama karma in a new way, which is to actually give outside of your
right,
family circle. And giving is in a manner the beginning or the preparation of finally your sannyasa, right? So I
right,
think this is a very, very well connected philosophy, which sort of allows you to actually do something active even as you enter Vanaprasthashram. It's not empty. You can do giving.
right.
And giving need
Very
not be of wealth. Giving can be of your time, of your labor. So I guess seva of some form
right.
is also what this sort of seems to bring to light. Yeah, does that make sense, Doctor?
Absolutely, absolutely right. As we move on, we'll see a slight reinterpretation of life stages.
Correct.
There is joking saying there is life begins at 40, and people stay there and wink and then laugh and then clap and so forth. Because
Right.
after when life begins at 40, that life is one of, making romance, making love, getting more and more involved and so forth. So life begins at 40, started there. You would start drinking beer or something at the age of 40, more than at the age of 20,
Correct.
and so forth. You can
The
smoke.
midlife crisis in a manner. Correct.
Yeah.
Or sort of trying to use whatever additional freedoms you got from the very early stages of Grihasthashram, you sort of
Right,
immediately want to fulfill needs you think you have not fulfilled in the past. Yeah.
right, right. So on
Whereas then
senior
I guess another interpretation is that life begins at 60.
yeah, yeah, that's right. Today, particularly, you live longer, so you compartmentalize your life in such a manner that there are equal parts. Then what do you do after 40 till you die? You have nothing to do. So, okay, put in something. Life begins at 60. Then what do you do again? At 60, what do you do?
Right.
This question will always be there, whether it is 20, 30, 40, 50, or 60. What do you do?
Right.
It's something to have sloganeering kind of thing.
Correct.
But how do you, and you should do the same thing. In essence, it will come to that. You can do the same thing at 60, which you wanted to start at 40, which you are going to start, which you had started at 40. So this process will be extended and it will add a lot of value to the people concerned, particularly yourself, and of course your neighbors and families and friends and so forth. Next slide, please. As you grow old, you want to do a lot of things,
Right.
but your coronary arteries and your other nerves and muscles don't necessarily cooperate.
Correct.
And this cooperation keeps declining as you approach say, 70, 80, and so forth. And we call this, there is an English saying, proverb saying, the spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak.
Correct.
I think it is biblical, if I remember correctly.
Right.
So you want to do something, but your limbs don't move.
Right.
For example, I want to get up in the morning and set up the PowerPoint.
Correct.
My fingers are stiff, and my neck is hurting here, there. My spirit is willing, but the flesh is weak. So wherever there is a desire or there is a will to do something, your body has to cooperate in order to be productive. By the same token, you start doing things which would be possible to do at this age of 40, 50, 60, and 70. You don't take on an agenda. You don't get up in the morning and say, I was a very handsome guy 10 years ago. Today I want to be like Amitabh Bachchan or something. That's ridiculous and impracticable advices and so forth. So people try to bend themselves in a way that they start feeling guilty if they can't act young. This acting young is a thing that we will see later on, maybe a separate seminar altogether. So don't just act young, act your age.
Right.
And at your age, whatever your spirit is willing is fine, but then you see to it that the spirit and the body collaborate.
Correct.
If you don't do that, again, you are a maladjusted person.
Correct.
And we will see this later on in another seminar. Any comments, Anku?
No, I think, again, a very, very valuable point. One, I guess, that I've heard you make before. The notion that age is just a number
Right.
is speaking to this point. And it sort of sounds normally very romantic, right? Age is just a number. Age isn't a real thing. Age is just in your mind. And if you don't think so, you aren't. But that is all basically, in a manner, unwillingness to accept reality, which is that of physical decline of many, many faculties, and not being able to adjust to that new reality and then work accordingly, right? And that is one point that came out. The second, I think, is the reservoir of habits and the reservoir of, let's say, mental detachment or the ability to do work without detachment is what you can't build when this happens. You have to build it all your life. So to me, as I think about it, in today's world, it is not 100% clear to someone of my age whether you're still in Grihasthashram or Vanaprasthashram. And one of the questions becomes, why don't you just push everything as hard as possible? But even if you did, let's say, your work, if you don't begin to detach mentally from it, you can't make that switch just 10 years or 15 years down the line when the body will definitely change significantly and your circumstances will change. No, absolutely. Very important point. Yeah.
Thank you. Man does this, if there is a change he doesn't like, and then he wants to still be in charge, he wants to be mature at the age of 70, this is an integral part of aging, refusal to recognize reality. And then we things like Kaya Kalp, Kaya Kalp is not a new one yesterday anyway. Kaya Kalp has been there right from the days of Yudhishthira and Rama and Krishna and so forth. Kaya Kalp is eternal youth where people strive and then only to get disappointed because they are not in tune or not in sync with nature. So Kaya Kalp is today a big market. They don't call it Kaya Kalp directly. There are a few brand names with Kaya Kalp, but many others are just pushing, as Venkat says, pushing the envelope literally.
Promise of eternal youth in that there are no limits. You can live forever and you can be forever young. Which also, just an interesting one as we move on to the next, which is, I think this is interesting. You chose it humorously, but Kaya is about the skin, right? And if your makeover is only skin deep, that's a problem. Whereas I guess what we really need is to make over the internals and change ourselves to the new reality. And that is more important than just the keeping the skin or the superficial level, changed or youthful.
Right. Very true. And then now we come to giving. When it comes to giving, what do you give? That's we just discussed that. But then why do you give? If you feel a little confused about giving, remember that you have been getting things from people around you, right from your parents and your grandparents, your neighbors, your bosses, blah, blah, blah. And you have to return whatever you have taken before you die, before you pass. This kind of a giving back, as we used to call it, giving back. So when you are giving, you're not really giving per se, you are giving back something which you had already taken. And that concept itself is difficult to understand. Digest many people who are egotistic and egoistic. The concept of giving back is itself absurd because you say, I have learned, I have earned all this. Why should I give? then you realize you have not earned everything. You have been an instrument in earning.
Correct.
And of course, also we'll have a similar seminar so on one of these days. So
Absolutely.
Shraddha is a ceremony.
Right.
Shraddha is a ceremony in which you symbolically give back to others. It
Correct.
doesn't have to be your parents.
Right.
And in that Hiranya Shraddha concept, you're giving back to your neighbors, your everything and each and everything. And if you take that giving back to the extreme, you'll say giving back is that Mahaparva,
Right.
it's a universal giving back. And
Right.
it's at least acknowledgement of you are having received and you are giving. So your arrogance of earning everything on your own has to go. And this is when you say Tatsat Brahmarpanamastu, they call it,
Right.
Brahmarpanam, do everything arpan
To
to
Brahma.
Brahma. Brahma is what? What is Brahman, not Brahma per se.
Correct.
So this is an important thing. And people normally celebrate it and celebrate it while enjoying, apparently, but at the same time, while feeling grateful. You have to feel grateful. That is the Shraddha concept of that. Next slide. Any comment, please,
No,
Venkatesh?
absolutely. Which brings us
Yeah,
to the last one. Yeah. Yes, Doctor.
yeah, yeah.
So,
No, I'm waiting.
yeah. So I think this is, this has been building up through this entire talk, which is, this verse from the Bhagavad Gita. And I think the whole of the Bhagavad Gita is about yoga. And, the different types of yoga, bhakti yoga, karma yoga, then karma sannyas yoga. This is taken from the fifth, which is about karma sannyas, which basically says, in effect, if you give up attachment and perform your actions only for the purpose of self-purification, you have the best chance of remaining happy, or at least being able to move to the next level. To Buddha's
Right,
point, that the root of all suffering is that attachment, it's not the action. And
right,
I think Vanaprastha is sort of the culmination of uh, that circle, just preparatory to giving up your body as well, right? You
right,
effectively just have to recognize that it is inevitable that uh, what you were given, as you just said, you didn't earn it. You were a custodian, you were an instrument for a while, and then you finally have to give it back, your body,
right,
your actions, everything, and become empty all over again. So I
right.
think the reason why we said this today, and this is the last slide, of course. So I think Doctor, any thoughts on what I just said?
Yeah, yeah. Now, this shloka is an all-inclusive, all-embracing kind of a shloka.
Right,
And look at places and manners in which you can give, you take and you give. Kayana,
right,
with your body,
correct,
manasa, by mind, buddha means intellect, kevala is indriya. Not just that, indriya also has to play a role. Your indriyas are what? Your indriyas of the panchendriya,
correct,
where you effectively work and deliver and then perpetuate the cycle of need fulfillment and so forth.
correct,
All these cycles go on. So cosmic cycle.
correct,
Yoginaha karma kurvanti. Now, yoginaha karma kurvanti. They are doing their karma.
correct,
When you are doing anything at all, you are in fact doing karma.
correct,
Okay. Sangam tyaktva Sangam Tyaktva means Sangha is attachment. The Tyaktva means to liberate oneself from. So
correct,
you have to liberate from your attachment and then you become a perfect yogi, as
correct,
Venkatesh said. So this is the quintessence of that shloka. As Venku said, almost every stanza of every shloka of Bhagavad Gita is dripping with wisdom and philosophy.
correct,
And it's like Samatvam Yoga Uchyate, like that.
correct,
Tatsat Brahmarpanamastu, etc. We say. So ultimately, all that works towards the concept of Advaita. Advaita is where you have no distinction from the being that you are or the being that you will be or whatever. Anything at all is part of the Brahma
correct,
universe.
correct,
So that's why you say, I am Brahmasmi.
correct,
It's not out of arrogance, it's out of a recognition of the fact that you are an agent of Brahma, Brahman, not
correct,
Brahma. You
correct,
are an agent of Brahman and you deliver. You deliver for the benefit of humanity. You don't sit idle. The Karmanyavadikaraste is another perpetual source of inspiration. I have my own interpretation on that. One of these days we will look at that also. I hope I'm doing justice to that shloka, Venkatesh.
Absolutely, doctor. Absolutely. I think we are soon out of time, but I think this was an awesome topic for for many adults. Even if maybe brahmacharya ashram may be just too early to contemplate this, but I think
Right.
throughout grihastha ashram, remembering that vanaprasthashram is next, and that it's actually almost a continuum rather than an abrupt start, is something that all of us can benefit from. And effectively, it comes down to two things: detachment as we continue to do everything, and preparing to give back what we have taken in a manner throughout our lives, are the two
Right.
fulcrums around which we can organize our preparation for vanaprasthashram. Does that make sense, doctor?
Yeah, yeah, very nice. Thank you.
Look forward to the next one, doctor. Thank you so very much.
Yeah, same here, Venkatesh. All the best.
Thank you. Take care. Bye.